This is Far From Home. I'm Scott Gurian. It was August of 2017. I'd been hearing for months that a total solar eclipse was scheduled to take place for the first time in the United States in several decades. And while I thought that was interesting, I didn't think it would be worth going far out of my way to see it. I mean, was it really that cool? I'd heard stories of people traveling hundreds or even thousands of miles to position themselves directly in the path of totality, the narrow center line of the eclipse's path where the moon would totally cover the sun. Some of them booked hotel rooms years in advance at hyperinflated rates. That all seemed crazy to me. I decided to go ahead with my plans and travel on a cross-country flight to California at the time the event was going to happen. Then, about a week before my departure, with all the media hype surrounding the upcoming event, I felt some pangs of regret. I suddenly worried I would miss out on experiencing what some people described as a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. So I made the best of the situation and hopped on eBay, where I made a last-minute purchase of some tinted solar glasses, as well as a telescopic lens for my iPhone, so I'd be able to photograph whatever I could see from my window 35,000 feet above the Earth. Being a total nerd, I also went online and printed out a map of the eclipse's path, which I overlaid with a map of my flight's route, and I even booked a window seat on the left side of the plane so I'd be facing the sun as we traveled west. I calculated that we'd be somewhere over southern Utah or Nevada when the eclipse began, so I took a nap and set the alarm on my phone to wake me up at the appropriate time. Thankfully, we were above the clouds, so I didn't have to worry about the weather, but when I tried looking for the sun, I was disappointed to see that it was mostly outside of my field of vision. I shifted in my seat, and I was just barely able to see it at the very edge of my tiny airplane window. Despite the circumstances, I was able to take some not-too-terrible photos of the moon partially covering the sun. I showed them to my seatmates, and I quickly became a celebrity on the plane, with everyone around me also wanting to see them, and several asking if I could airdrop them copies of my pictures. One woman sitting across the aisle even got so excited that she stood up and made an announcement to all the other passengers that there was an eclipse taking place outside the left windows. I struck up a conversation with the person sitting next to me. She was from Rhode Island and remembered witnessing the last total solar eclipse in the U.S. back in the 1970s when she was in the first grade. She said she remembered that when the moon totally covered the sun, everything suddenly got really quiet. Like me, she also regretted missing the opportunity this time to get the full experience. Looking back, I guess it was all mildly interesting, but I couldn't help but imagine how much more amazing it would have been if I had seen the moon entirely cover the sun, temporarily descending the Earth into darkness. I decided then and there that I'd add seeing a total solar eclipse to my bucket list, and I would travel wherever I needed to go to see it from a better vantage point. But when this latest eclipse came along a couple of weeks ago, I didn't have to go very far. On average, solar eclipses take place somewhere on Earth every 18 months or so, but it's a big planet, so many of those happen in really remote places like Antarctica or in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. Now, in April of 2024, just 7 years after that last eclipse, I'd get another chance to see one, and this time it was within a day's drive of my home in New Jersey. I felt incredibly lucky. I studied a map of the path of totality and decided on Niagara Falls as a prime viewing spot for my brother Drew and I to witness the event. I figured that Niagara Falls is a pretty scenic place to begin with, so how cool would it be to see the eclipse with the falls as a backdrop? I booked a hotel for a couple of nights on the Ontario side of the falls. We had everything planned for our trip. Then Mother Nature threw us for a loop. I broke the news to Drew when he arrived on Sunday morning to pick me up. I pulled out my phone and showed him a map of the path of the eclipse for the following day. Have you seen this in the New York Times? They have really helpful
Haven't looked.
maps, so you could see exactly the forecast, the weather. So that's Niagara Falls and Buffalo.
Okay.
So it's like 60 to 80% cloud cover. Yeah. Suddenly, Niagara Falls didn't seem like such a great place to view the eclipse after all. So if you zoom out, go to the east.
Okay.
Northeast Vermont, northern New Hampshire, and
Maine.
Northern Maine. 0 to 20%. Most people weren't planning on going there because it's the middle of nowhere, and it was not a place that people were thinking there would be good visibility, because historically at this time of year there isn't. But it just so happens, a fluke in the weather, tomorrow, it's actually looking like one of the best places in the country right now, they're saying.
How far is that from where we're going? Like, from where we're staying, rather.
It's not near where we're staying. But if you can go somewhere with 0 to 20% cloud coverage...
Sure, I agree. So what does that mean, though?
This is totally last minute, but I'm wondering if we should change our plans.
Okay.
I mean, if people say this is like a once-in-a-lifetime chance or whatever, you know?
I think it's one of those things that maybe I should be more excited about. I'm really not. Like, I'm happy to go somewhere with you for a couple days, but like, I don't know. I mean, I love nature, but I'm not. I don't know. I just heard a start of a podcast, and this guy was saying it changed his life when he saw the last one. He saw one in Aruba, but he's also like an astrophysicist or something.
I mean, if we're going to drive all these hours, it should probably be worth it, right? We
Sure.
should.
Can we cancel our accommodations?
At this point, no. What are you supposed to do? You've got to book a place months in advance, but you have no way of knowing what the weather's going to be, right?
In a case like this, when it's weather dependent, which I didn't think about at the time, I think you just don't book in advance and you risk it.
Yeah, well.
Weather is weather. Weather does what it wants. Where are we going to stay? What will our accommodations cost in, say...
Well, you know what? I looked online last night. There are places, like we stayed in like Portland, Maine or somewhere for like $75 a night or something.
Okay.
Or even northern New Hampshire. New Hampshire's looking pretty good now, actually. We had planned this more in advance. I mean, you have a friend in New Hampshire, Jeremy.
I was just going to say,
yeah,
he's north of Concord.
I mean, it's so last minute. I don't know if you could spring something like this on your friend at the last minute. It seemed like a long shot, but we figured we didn't have anything to lose, so Drew gave his friends Jeremy and Claire a call.
We actually have a hotel booked like just north of Niagara Falls, but it seems like it's going to be like 80 to 100% socked in.
Yes, that's what you're doing.
He explained our predicament and apologized for the incredibly short notice.
We were about to leave now to head to Canada, passports in hand.
And wouldn't you know it, they graciously welcomed us to come.
Cool.
Forward to seeing you guys.
Yeah, thank you so much for letting us crash. We'll see y'all later on.
Stay in touch.
So that's how we ended up at Jeremy and Claire's place in southern New Hampshire, a perfect launch point to catch a glimpse of this cosmic event.
Hi there. Thank you so much for accommodating us on such short notice. We appreciate it. So
Good to see you. You know, sometimes it just comes together.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Hey, welcome.
Thank you
Thanks
so
for
much
coming.
for hosting us
Oh my
last
gosh.
Absolutely. I mean, honestly, he was the one who planned this, and I wasn't even initially like that. I was like, cool, sounds...
Pretty cool.
I'm sure it can.
I've seen eclipses before, but I've never been in totality.
Yeah.
Apparently there's like hundreds of thousands of people that are up here right now. We saw this tiny little Airbnb, and it was $600 a night for 2 people. That's all it slept. There's a guy I saw on the news that rented or booked 20 rooms 2 years ago in northern New Hampshire somewhere. And when he went to go claim them, they're like, oh, sorry, we jacked the prices. You can't have them anymore. So they canceled his reservation because they were selling them at a higher rate.
You can do that?
No, they're going to get in a bunch of trouble.
Yeah.
It's price gouging.
Oh, man.
But I feel bad for him because he planned it out 2 years in advance and thought he had a dial.
And then they said,
now
F
it's
you.
taken away from him.
Yeah. Man.
After getting settled, we got some rest, and the following morning we packed our lunches and then hit the road.
Jeremy, tell me where we're heading.
We are on our way to Stark, New Hampshire, just south of Dixville Notch. I might be an outlier here, but I wanted to get away from as many people as possible. So we found an off-the-beaten trail that's just a short 1 mile hike to the top of a little rock cut. I think we'll get a good view, and hopefully be the only ones up there.
And this is, what, it's like a 2.5 hour drive from where we are. I guess we're trying to avoid the highways, right, to avoid all the traffic.
That's our hope.
Yeah.
Our plan mostly worked. By driving exclusively on back roads, we managed to dodge many of the Eclipse Chasers who were heading in the same direction, and we actually made pretty good time, at least until we got close.
Okay, according to my map, we've now just crossed over into the path of totality.
Yes.
Totality or bust.
If we were to just stop here, I think the eclipse would only be like 45 seconds or something, the total eclipse. So we're going to drive in a little farther north, and where we're going, it'll be like 2 minutes. What happened here? Oh, are these people stopping here? Oh, look, they're already setting up chairs on the side of the road. Look at that. They're like having a picnic. They've set up blankets and chairs. They're going to just stop right here to watch it. It's just the middle of a country road.
It's like as soon as we got to the edge of the zone of totality, everybody else obviously knew as well, and they just stopped.
I know, the traffic started.
They looked like tailgaters outside a football stadium. People were trying on their eclipse glasses for size. One woman was setting up a telescope, and some folks were even dressed in special outfits for the occasion.
What did they do?
Tinfoil hats.
Tinfoil hats. The eclipse is just a big hoax from big astronomy.
We love the hats! Hell yeah!
That's really funny.
This is kind of delightful. Traffic aside, just the people watching is phenomenal.
This is probably the first time in history there's ever been a traffic jam in this little town. Here we are driving across a covered bridge, across a river.
Oh, she had a shirt.
Oh yeah, she's got a 2024 Eclipse shirt. That's funny. Is that the trailhead right here?
Yeah.
That's it. Wow. Okay, we've arrived. Still some snow up here. We're pretty far north.
We tried our best to find a place where there wouldn't be tons of other eclipse chasers, but even here, at this relatively unknown trail, we were far from alone.
I see some out-of-state plates here. There was a Maryland, there's a Massachusetts, a few out-of-towners. Connecticut, mostly the northeast region. Wow, look at this sky is bright blue. We've really chosen the right place. I'm so glad we came here. Okay, just an update here. We started to hike to the top, but we saw people coming down. They said that it wasn't so good up there. The view was facing the wrong direction, and there was just a small place to look, and it was kind of icy and slushy. So we came back down. We found a little spot clearing here. We've got, a camera on a tripod with a filter over it to try to capture this, and we've got another phone with a filter trying to take a time lapse here. We are all set up. And looks like the eclipse is already starting. The moon is probably a third over the sun already, and hardly any clouds in the sky. Really couldn't ask for better weather.
As we stood there watching the moon creep ever so slowly over the sun, another couple wandered over and asked if they could join us.
What are your names again?
I'm
Sorry. Steve.
Marina.
Marina, nice to meet you.
Thank you.
And you came up from Boston, you were saying?
Right. We're
This morning we landed at like midnight last night from Dallas.
So you flew down to Dallas to
On
try to get...
Saturday.
Because all the predictions were
Yeah.
that was supposed to be one of the best parts
Yeah.
to see the eclipse.
We even have friends who work at a planetarium in San Francisco. We all flew in from all over the country. And we came to Dallas, we had a spot set up, someone lives there, and then cloudy, just overcast. And so we said, you know what, screw you guys, we're gonna go back early. And now we drove for 4 hours from
So
Boston.
you flew back to Boston.
Yeah,
back
a day
to Boston.
early.
You were able to get an early flight to return.
Yeah.
And then it's funny that you live in Boston. You live not far from here. You flew so far away to catch it, and you could have just stayed home all along.
Yeah. Or we could have invited our friends to come visit us.
To come here. We've really lucked out here. It seems like this is one of the few parts of the country, actually. Here in Arkansas, it looks like.
Really?
Yeah.
Rather be here.
And Maine.
And Maine, yeah.
Wow. Yeah, so not a lot of sleep, but a lot of enthusiasm. We are hoping that Dallas, the skies magically part for them.
For your friends, yeah.
But we're not sorry.
Have either of you seen eclipses before?
I feel like I have been around a partial one, but not a full one.
It's not the same
No.
from what we hear, yeah. Right.
I've read about, there's a famous Annie Dillard essay I teach high school English, and so I told all my students to read about today. There's Annie Dillard about On the Totality. She says, seeing a total eclipse versus a partial is like marrying a man versus kissing him.
Okay, that's a good analogy.
Mm-hmm.
Culturally, marriage is worse than kissing, so I don't know.
I think this will be better.
Yeah, we're excited.
Okay, so it is now 10 after 3, and I'm looking up with my glasses, and the sun is like 3/4 of the way covered. It's like a crescent, and the brightness of the sky, everything's definitely got a little bit dimmer. I think so. I don't know. I notice it. I don't know. Maybe I'm imagining it, but it seems to me like things aren't quite as bright as they were.
Out a little bit, but it feels like a little more gray. Like
Yeah.
a little bit less vibrant.
Yeah, I mean, the colors are washed out a little, I would say. It's definitely gotten chillier. I put on my coat again. I don't know, do you not feel that?
A little bit.
I think so.
It's almost like twilight, right? When the shadows
Yeah.
are kind of soft.
Kind of like Twilight, yeah, I could see that, yeah, sure.
What's weird though is normally during a sunset, during golden hour, everything glows in a more vibrant way. And now it's like more dull in a way.
Yeah.
The shadows are more distinct.
The shadows, yeah. You could see more shadows behind us, definitely.
My friend said that they let their whole second grade class out early when there was an eclipse earlier, and they just left them unsupervised. They all just stared directly at the sun.
Oh no.
We were all perched on a hillside overlooking a valley with some tall pine trees and mountains off in the distance. As the moment approached, the light around us continued to darken, but it wasn't like dusk. This felt totally different.
The light has a really weird quality to it.
Yeah, it really does.
I don't even know how to describe it. But it is like a silvery light. It
Yeah,
feels a little spooky.
Honestly.
Yeah. This is very creepy. It is 3:25, so we got 4 minutes. The suspense.
It was the middle of the afternoon, but as darkness descended, the stars were suddenly visible all around us.
Is that a planet? Seriously.
Oh, yeah, it is.
That would be...
I consulted the star tracker app on my phone.
That's Venus. That bright dot, that's Venus.
The experience was starting to feel incredibly surreal.
This is really trippy, yes.
I actually have chills. I know it's actually gotten colder, but I think it's more than that.
I put on my eclipse glasses.
Wow, just a little tiny sliver of the sun left. And everything is so dim here. It's so weird. It's like someone just turned the dimmer switch down really low. People are cheering off in the distance.
And then it happened.
Whoa, there it is. Oh my gosh. Oh, that is so cool.
Wow.
Oh, shit!
It's like a disco ball. Oh my god.
Wow. Oh my god. This is amazing. Oh my god.
We'd all seen plenty of photos of what total solar eclipses looked like, and we'd listened to all sorts of podcasts where people described how incredible the experience was, but nothing had truly prepared us for just what it would be like to witness this in the flesh. Off in the distance, we heard folks shooting off some kind of fireworks, which Claire joked was so very stereotypical of New Hampshire. And then, just as we were getting over our initial disbelief of this amazing sight in the sky above us, and really starting to appreciate it, the moment of totality came to an end.
Okay, here comes the sun again.
The moon moved across the sun, and the sun's rays emerged from the other side.
Put back on your eclipse glasses.
Oh my god. It's so strange.
We all just stood there in silence for a few minutes, kind of dumbstruck by what we just witnessed.
I just wanted it to last longer.
Yeah, no kidding.
The stars and planets in the sky slowly disappeared, drowned out by the increasing light, and the temperature began to warm up once again.
Well, that was totally worth the drive all the way up here.
Yeah.
I mean, it would have been really cool seeing it over a waterfall with like probably 100,000 people.
Yeah.
This is a different experience, but I really appreciated this.
It's kind of a phenomenon of nature. I'd rather see it in nature. You know?
That's pretty intense.
As I mentioned at the beginning of this story, despite all we'd heard, my brother and I were still initially a bit skeptical about just how magical this would be. But I think it's fair to say that we're all now converts, or newly minted Umbrophiles, as Eclipse fanatics are called. I think it's hard to see something like this and not feel that way. So take my word for it. If you ever get the chance to experience a total solar eclipse in the path of totality, believe the hype and try to make plans to see it. The next total solar eclipse in the continental United States won't take place for another 20 years, but if you're willing and able to travel, you don't have to wait anywhere near that long. The next one will take place in 2026 in Iceland and northern Spain, and if you could make it to Egypt the following year, you'll be able to experience an eclipse with a moment of totality lasting nearly 6.5 minutes. Seriously, I've already put it on my calendar.